Welcome everybody to the channel. You've seen the thumbnail. I'm going to try and kill two birds with one stone, or even three if I can, into this video. Right, the main reason for this video is Hamilton brushes. Now, a while back, well, it's not that long ago, it feels like a long while ago because you know what this year's been, it's gone quite quickly. I was very privileged to actually be invited over to the Hamilton factory on the side of Birmingham. So if you're watching this worldwide, if you don't know where Birmingham is, it's very much central to the UK, stroke England, and I was invited over to have a look around their factory on a factory tour. There were some other really VIP people there as well, and heaven knows why I was invited. Anyway, I had a look round and came away with a goodie bag. I was very privileged to actually get my hands on, you know, the Hammy Greens, one of the rollers, very famous green roller. I saw this little beauty coming off the production line, being cut, being bagged, being sealed, and I got this literally warm. That's how good the factory tour was. I'll say that. I never saw a brush being produced because brushes for Hamilton don't get produced in the UK. They get produced elsewhere. But the whole reason that I went to the Hamilton factory visit was because they've got rebranding, shall I say, and they've got some new brushes coming out. Two of the new brushes that have come out are what this video is all about today. Right, I'll just show you the wrappers. I'll tell you what's on them. I've got a door, I've got some paint, away we go. We're a painting and decorating channel. Right, two brushes. We've got a max stroke and we've got a clean edge. Can you see that? Max stroke and clean edge. Can we focus? Probably not. Right, let's just talk about the max stroke. I'll show you what they look like in a minute. Don't worry. Right, max stroke. This is a softer bristled brush. Now, on the front of the label, always read the label, always read the back of the can. This is longer, softer, flexible tips. This is the brush. And for a smooth, flawless finish, superb pickup, measured release, and uncompromising, need my glasses on, uncompromised accuracy with no spraying. That means when you're cutting in, your bristles aren't going to be all over the place, and you're going to be able to cut in quite nicely and neatly. Right, I'm going to put it to you. The max stroke, with it being a softy brush, is more geared up for thinner paints, i.e. the thinner water-based paints. Or if you've got oil-based paints that are thinner, i.e. varnishes, you might want to be looking at one of these brushes. I know what you're saying, I'm coming on to it in a minute. Don't worry, I'm coming on to it in a minute. Right, the next brush, which is the clean edge. Right, the clean edge, same handles. Superb pickup, shorter, stiffer filaments for easy application. Flag tips, that means they've been, let's call it hammered, so they flag out wider like that. Instead of being together, they go like that. Right, flag tips, used straight from pack, i.e. you can use this straight out the packet, straight into your paint. You don't need to be bedding it in. It's already bedded in because the way the tips are. That's what the flagging is. And then it says even float and spread. This is for thicker paints. So even if you've got a water-based paint that feels a little bit thicker when you're mixing it up, you might want to be looking at that. If you've got thicker paints, i.e. your oil-based paints, that you need in something that's got a little bit of a stiffer, firmer bristle, this is the bad boy for you. Right, let's just have a look at these bristles. Let's just get them out, because they're pulling them out of the packet. Right, let's look at the clean edge. You see that? And then we're looking at the max stroke. Can you see the difference? The max stroke, I'm going to say water-based, thinner paints. Clean edge, thicker paints, oil-based paints. Now the big question that you're probably telling me, Phil, pure bristle. Hamilton do not make a pure bristle brush anymore. They have moved with the times, as we all should. We shouldn't be dinosaur painting still. We have moved with the times like Hamilton have. hopefully. I'm on about painters, not Hamilton. And they've now got brushes out there that are geared up for today's modern paints. Even your oil-based paints aren't the same as what they were when I started my apprenticeship and went to college to do my City and Guilds 30 odd years ago. They have changed, and brush manufacturers have needed to move with the times. Hamilton were very much known for a pure bristle brush that were brilliant in oil-based paints 20, 30 years ago, but we need in brushes that can be geared up for today's paints. And that's where we are today. That's where I am now. I've got some paint down here. I'm going back to a paint that you might have seen, you might not have seen, and I'm going to try it in a different colour over Dave the Door. Dave the Door's had a water-based satin on over the last number of weeks and months. I've sanded it down, dusted it off. I'm good to go with the coat of paint, and I'm going to go with a bit different colour. I've got it here. I'm mixing it up as we speak, and we're going for the Johnstone's Aqua Guard Durable Matte Finish this time. So if you want to know about the Aqua Guard Durable Satin Finish or the gloss, they're up in that playlist, and I'll link an individual video to the Aqua Guard there as well that I did recently, a number of weeks ago. But this is a totally different finish. This is a matte finish, which will be interesting to see. I'm doing it in a green, so it'll show up on the door, and I'll be honest, I know what this paint's like. It does feel thick. So I will be using the clean edge, just picking it up there, with a shorter length out on the bristle. It's got the flagged tips there for the paint release and laying off, and we'll see what it's like. When I come back to do a second coat, I'm going to use the max stroke, which is the softer bristle, longer length out, and geared up more for thinner paint. So we'll see how it holds up against that bit thicker water-based paint. So let me just get this tipped out and let's get started. Right, I'm back. I've got my paint kettle out. I'm working from one side of the kettle. I've just bedded my brush into the paint, so I'm already preloaded, shall I say. Now this paint, this Johnstone's Aqua Guard, drying time, you'll probably find it's gone off within about an hour, but actual drying time, probably 2 to 4 hours, and recoat times 4 to 6 hours. Because I'm later on in the day, I'll actually get this coated up. I've got some heating on in the studio, and I'll come back to this tomorrow to give it a second coat, and then use the max stroke, which is that, on the door for a second coat to see how it applies. But let's see what the first initial thoughts are of the clean edge. Right, it does feel a shorter bristle. This is where you've probably in the past with a traditional pure bristle brush taken a good number of weeks or months to bed a brush in to get it to that feel of having control with it, is probably the word I want to use. Control. It definitely holds a good amount of paint. I'm just going to turn my blower off on my feet to keep the air not so warm. I don't want it drying off on me too quick. Now, this being a matte finish, people are going to say, where do you use a matte finish? Do you know what? With the Aqua Guard, you can use it on any surface you like, i.e. inside, walls, woodwork, if you so require. This is not an exterior paint though. It feels funny me going back to a brush that is slightly shorter. It does definitely feel firmer. Now, I'm not going to take this panel too far across in one go. Bring top half down, I'll bring the bottom. You put it on, you give it a bit of a crow's nest, work quite quickly with it because we are water-based paint. Dave the Door's trying to escape, and then lay off with the tips of the bristles. Now I'm just laying back into itself. I'm not trying to bring it down like that. I'm just laying back off into it. Now, this green is going to be a little bit critical over a white. I'm just going to neatly just tip off the edges of the mouldings just to blend them in. I'm not expecting perfect coverage over that. We're not looking at the paint for coverage today. I'm just looking at it as a demo paint for the brush. But that said, a couple of coats of that should be quite nice. Now, that didn't go on too bad at all. It does feel unusual to me because the brushes I'm normally used to are Arrowworthy's. I'm looking down here, my Heritage brush, which are a little bit longer and softer, which will probably be a bit more like that one, which is the match stroke. But I'm thinking, get this coated up and I'll give you a bit of a conclusion of what it felt like. It does feel it's holding enough paint. It also feels like it's releasing the paint. To me, the thickness of that brush just feel a bit unusual to what I'm used to on today's paints and brushes. I've got to be honest, it's honest Phil. I'm not going to tell you I like it if I don't. If I don't like it, I'll tell you. If I do like it, I'll tell you. But let's just see what it is like. Right, I've just done that bottom panel there. I'll bring you down to see it. It is that thicker brush, and it feels, as I've just said, feels a bit unusual. I've got a 35mm angle cut / cut brush. That's a lot thinner. I'm just going to see, it's the same bristle, it's just in a different form. I'm just going to see how that performs, i.e. with this paint, just cutting the mouldings in, because if anything, again, I'm being honest, that feels cumbersome to paint mouldings. It's not too bad on the main flats where you need to get a bit of paint on, but for cutting in mouldings, that feels a little bit of a thicker brush. Not about the actual bristles, but the actual size of that for pulling off what I've put on. So let's just see if an angled / cut is a bit more helpful on the mouldings. Do you know what? Yeah, it does. That slimmer brush feels I've got a little bit more control of cutting those mouldings in. Now, these brushes can be used for your woodwork, and they also can be used for your emulsions, cutting in. So your / cut might be better for cutting in around your covings and your ceilings and down door frames if you've got emulsions, but particularly that feels a lot nicer to cut those mouldings in than trying to use that. Now we're going for the filling panel. This is where this 2-inch brush is coming in a bit more into its own. It's got stiffer bristle for the control of applying the paint and spreading it out. I'm trying to work quite quickly because we are a water-based paint. We don't want to faff and play about with it. Knocking those fatty edges off. Right, let me crack on. I'm going to say crack on, I always say crack on. Let me get this coated up, but I can tell you now, that feels cumbersome to me to try and do mouldings and bits and pieces like that. That is no problem using on your flats and your bigger areas. So you do need something slimmer. Can you see something slimmer and particularly angle cut? The bristles are great, but something angle cut to try and cut your mouldings in, because that was taking off more paint than it was actually putting on when I tried to get a bit more control of it. And I'm just going to go and touch those in, see. Yeah. Right, see you later. I'll see you tomorrow when we drop onto that. And don't panic, I have got a / angle cut in the same bristle or a very similar bristle just there. See you tomorrow. Okay, we're back the next day. We've let that dry off nicely. I've got to compliment Johnno's on that. That Aqua Guard durable matte finish, really surprised. I actually thought the finish of that would be probably quite dry. Do you know what? It's not dry at all. It's actually got a nice flat sheen level. It says flat finish. It is a flat sheen level, to the point that I'd probably use this in my own house. I prefer this finish than the actual satin that I've tested before that's been in white. But I'm coming back because yesterday I was using the firmer brush, which is the clean edge. I'm now going to be coming back with the Max Stroke, which is the softer brush, to coat this up. But just a quick review on how I thought that applied. I think we've done good to actually go with a white door and then going over with the green, because it actually shows how, I'll zoom in for you, it actually shows how the brush is laying on and applying the paint. Now it's clearly, let's call it brush marky, i.e. grinny. It's showing brush marks. The brush held paint well, but I think that brush made it a little bit scratchy, being firmer. So I'm hoping when I come back to talk to you, having applied it with the other brush, with the softer bristle, I think we should get a little bit more control of that brush applying the paint better, I should say. Now, I do like that. So let's move on from that. I do like that. These brushes, I'm talking, this is probably going to be a 40-minute video, isn't it, by the time we've finished? Or do you know what? I'm going to make this into two videos. If you got a pure bristle brush, in days of old, when men were bold, and I told you toilets hadn't been invented, a pure bristle brush, you would start using a pure bristle brush with your emulsion paints. You'd bed it in with your emulsion, you'd start wearing it down, then you'd probably drop it into, you clean it out clearly, then you'd probably drop it into oil undercoats and bed it into oil undercoats, to the point that that brush is then actually bedded into the actual shape that you work when you're brushing. People who use a brush work differently when they're actually applying paint by a brush. They probably put a bit more application on and put a bit more pressure on as they're going, or there might be some people just using the tips. Depending on how you paint with a brush, depends on what pressure you put on those tips and how it wears. So if you can bed a new brush in, this is pure bristle I'm talking about, if you can bed a new brush in with emulsion, then drop it into oil undercoats, and then drop it into your glosses and your eggshells for finishing, hopefully by the time you've actually bedded that brush in, it is a perfect brush for that application of an oil-based paint. We've moved away from pure bristle now. We're now onto these synthetics. These are good, and as I said, it said on the packet, flag tips, use straight from pack. So these are good to go straight away. And let's face it, I applied that paint all right. I've gone quiet. So now we're going to move over to the Max Stroke brush, which I have got a slash cut there, and clearly the same 2-inch as that one there. Now I'm going to make this into a second video, so if you want to watch what this brush is like, please watch that video just there. It's coming up, can you see it just there? And I will see you on that video. Thanks for watching this one. See you on the next one.